Today's story is called The Queen Bee. Two kings' sons once went out in search of adventures and fell into a wild, disorderly way of living, so that they never came home again. The youngest, who was called Simpleton, set out to seek for his brothers, but when at length he found them, they mocked him for thinking he, with his simplicity, could get through in the world, when they, too, could not make their way, and yet they were so much cleverer. All three came presently to an ant-hill. Now the two elder wished to destroy it, to see the little ants creeping about in terror and carrying their eggs away, but Simpleton said, "Leave the creatures in peace, I will not allow you to disturb them." Onwards they went, and came to a lake, on which a great number of ducks were swimming. The two brothers wanted to catch a couple and roast them, but Simpleton would not permit it, and said, "Leave the creatures in peace, I will not suffer you to kill them." Then at length they came to a bee's nest, in which there was so much honey it ran out of the trunk of the tree. Now the two wanted to make a fire beneath the tree and suffocate the bees in order to take away the honey, but Simpleton again stopped them and said, "Leave the creatures in peace. Do not burn them." At length the three brothers arrived at a castle where stone horses were standing in the stables, and no human being was to be seen. Now they went through all the halls until, quite at the end, they came to a door in which there were 3 locks. In the middle of the door there was a pane through which they could see into the room. There they saw a little grey man sitting at a table. They called him once, twice, but he did not hear. At last they called for him a 3rd time, and he got up, opened the locks, and came out. He said nothing, but conducted them to a handsomely spread table, and when they had eaten and drunk, he took each of them to a bedroom. Next morning the little grey man came to the eldest, beckoned to him, and conducted him to a stone table on which were inscribed 3 tasks, by the performance of which the castle could be delivered. The first was that in the forest beneath the moss lay the princess's pearls, 1,000 in number, which must be picked up, and if by sunset 1 pearl was wanting, he who had looked for them would be turned to stone. The eldest went thither and sought the whole day, but when it came to the end he had found only 100, and what was written on the table came to pass, and he was changed to stone. Next day the second brother undertook the adventure. It did not, however, fare much better with him than with the eldest. He found only 200 pearls, and was changed to stone. At last the turn came to Simpleton also, who sought in the moss. It was, however, hard to find the pearls, and he got on slowly, that he seated himself on a stone and wept. While he was thus sitting, the king of the ants, whose life he had saved, came with 5,000 ants, and before long the creatures had got all the pearls together and laid them in a heap. The second task was to fetch out of the lake the key of the king's daughter's bedchamber. When Simpleton came to the lake, the ducks that he had saved swam up to him, dived down, and brought the key out of the water. The third task, however, was the most difficult. From amongst the 3 sleeping daughters of the king was the youngest and dearest to be sought out. They, however, resembled one another exactly, and were only to be distinguished by having eaten different sweetmeats before they fell asleep. The first had eaten a bit of sugar, the second had eaten a little syrup, the third a spoonful of honey. The queen of the bees, which Simpleton had protected from the fire, came and tasted the lips of all 3, and at last she remained sitting on the mouth that had eaten honey, and thus the king's son recognized the correct princess. Then the enchantment was at an end. Everything was released from their sleep. Those who had been turned to stone received once more their natural forms. Simpleton married the youngest and sweetest princess, and after her father's death became king. His 2 brothers received the other sisters. The end. The Hut in the Forest. A poor woodcutter lived with his wife and 3 daughters in a little hut on the edge of a lonely forest. One morning, as he was about to go to his work, he said to his wife, "Let my dinner be brought into the forest to me by my eldest daughter, or I shall never get my work done, and in order she may not miss her way, I will take a bag of millet with me and strew the seeds on the path." When, therefore, the sun was just above the center of the forest, the girl set out on her way with a bowl of soup. But the field sparrows and wood sparrows, larks and finches, blackbirds and siskins had picked up the millet long before the girl could not find the track. Trusting to chance, she went on and on till the sun sank and night began to fall. The trees rustled in the darkness, the owls hooted, and she began to be afraid. But in the distance she soon perceived a light that glimmered between the trees. "There ought to be some people living there who can take me in for the night," thought she, and went up to the light. It was not long before she came to a house, the windows of which were all alight. She knocked, and a rough voice from inside called, "Come in." The girl stepped into the dark entrance and knocked at the door of the room. "Come in," cried the voice, and when she opened the door, an old gray-haired man was sitting at the table, supporting his face with both hands. His white beard fell down over the table as far as the ground. By the stove lay 3 animals, a hen, a cock, and a brindled cow. The girl told her story to the old man, and begged for shelter for the night, and the man said, "Pretty little hen, pretty little cock, pretty brindled cow, what do you say to that?" "Dukes," said the animals, and that must have meant, "We are willing," for the old man said, "Here you shall have shelter and food, go to the fire and cook us our supper." The girl found in the kitchen abundance of everything and cooked a good supper, but had no thought for the animals. She carried the full dishes to the table, seated herself by the gray-haired man, and ate and satisfied her hunger. When she'd had enough, she said, "Now I am tired. Where is there a bed in which I might lie down to sleep?" The animals replied, "You have eaten with him, you have drunk with him, you have had no thought for us. Find out for yourself where you can pass the night." Then said the old man, "Go upstairs, and you will find a room with 2 beds. Shake them up, put white linen on them, and I will come down and lie to sleep." The girl went up, and when she had shaken the beds and put clean sheets on, she lay down in one of them without waiting longer for the old man. After some time, however, the gray-haired man came, took his candle, looked at the girl, and shook his head. When he saw she had fallen into a sound sleep, he opened a trap-door and let her down into the cellar. Late at night, the woodcutter came home and reproached his wife for leaving him to hunger all day. "It is not my fault," she said. "The girl went out with your dinner and must have lost herself, but she's sure to come back tomorrow." The woodcutter, however, arose before dawn to go to the forest and requested the second daughter take him his dinner that day. "I will take a bag with lentils," he said. "The seeds are larger than millet. The girl shall see them better and can't lose her way." At dinner time, therefore, the girl took out the food, but the lentils had disappeared. The birds of the forest had picked them up, as they had done the day before, and had left none. The girl wandered about in the forest till night, and she, too, reached the house of the old man, was told to go in, and begged for food and a bed. The man with the white beard again asked the animals, "Pretty little hen, pretty little cock, pretty brindled cow, what do you say to that?" And the animals again replied, "Dukes," and everything happened just as it had the day before. The girl cooked a good meal, ate and drank with the old man, and did not concern herself about the animals, and when she inquired about her bed, they answered, "You have eaten with him, you have drunk with him, you have had no thought for us. Find out for yourself where you can pass the night." When she was asleep, the old man came, looked at her, shook his head, and let her down into the cellar. On the 3rd morning, the woodcutter said to his wife, "Send our youngest child out with my dinner today. She's always been good obedient, and will stay in the right path and not run about after every wild bumblebee as her sisters did." The mother did not want to do it, and said, "Am I to lose my dearest child as well?" "Have no fear," he said. "The girl will not go astray. She's too prudent and sensible. Besides, I will take some peas with me and strew them about. They are larger than lentils, and will show her the way." But when the girl went out with the basket on her arm, the wood pigeons had got the peas in their crops, and she did not know which way to turn. She was full of sorrow, and never ceased to think how hungry her father would be, and how her good mother would grieve if she did not go home. At length, when it grew dark, she saw the light and came to the house in the forest. She begged quite prettily to be allowed to spend the night there, and the man with the white beard once more asked his animals, "Pretty little hen, pretty little cock, pretty brindled cow, what say you to that?" "Dukes," said they. So the girl went to the stove where the animals were lying, and petted the cock and hen, and stroked their smooth feathers with her hand, and caressed the brindled cow between her horns. And when, in obedience to the old man's orders, she made ready some good soup, the bowl was placed upon the table. She said, "Am I to eat as much as I want, and the animals to have nothing? Outside is food and plenty. I'll look after them." So she went and brought in some barley and stewed it for the cock and hen, and a whole armful of sweet-smelling hay for the cow. "I hope you will like it," said she, "and you shall have a refreshing draught in case you are thirsty." So she fetched in a bucket full of water, and the cock and hen jumped on the edge of it and dipped their beaks in and held up their heads as birds do when they drink. And the brindled cow also took a hearty draught. When the animals were fed, the girl seated herself at the table by the old man and ate what was left. It was not long before the cock and hen began to thrust their heads beneath their wings, and the eyes of the cow likewise began to blink. So said the girl, "Ought we not to go to bed?" "Pretty little hen, pretty little cock, pretty brindled cow, what say you to that?" The animals answered, "Dukes." "You have eaten with us, you have drunk with us, you have had kind thought for all of us. We wish you good night." Then the maiden went upstairs, shook the feather beds, and laid clean sheets on them. When she done it, the old man came and lay down on one of the beds, and his white beard reached down to his feet. The girl lay on the other, said her prayers, and fell asleep. She slept quietly till midnight, and there was such a noise in the house that she awoke. There was a sound of cracking and splitting in every corner, and the doors sprang open and beat against the walls. The beams groaned as if they were being torn into other joints. It seemed as if the staircase were falling in, and at length there was a crash as if the entire roof had fallen in. As, however, all grew quiet once more, the girl was not hurt. She stayed quietly lying where she was, and fell asleep again. But when she woke in the morning with the brilliancy of sunshine, what did her eyes behold? She was lying in a vast hall, and everything around her shone with royal splendor. On the walls golden flowers grew up on a ground of green silk. The bed was ivory, and the canopy of red velvet, and on a chair close by was a pair of shoes embroidered with pearls. The girl believed she was in a dream, but 3 richly clad attendants came in and asked what orders she would like to give. "If you will go," she said, "I will get up at once and make ready some soup for the old man, and I will feed the hen, the cock, and the beautiful brindled cow." She thought the old man was up already, and looked round at his bed, but however he was not lying in it, but a stranger was. And while she looked at him, and becoming aware he was young and handsome, he woke, sat up in bed, and said, "I am a king's son who was bewitched by a wicked witch, and made to live in this forest, as an old grey-haired man. No one was allowed to be with me but my 3 attendants in the form of a cock, hen, and brindled cow. The spell was not to be broken till a girl came to us whose heart was so good she showed herself full of love, not only towards mankind, but toward animals, and that that you have done, and by you at midnight we were set free, and the old hut in the forest has changed back again to my royal palace." And when they had risen, the king's son ordered the 3 attendants to set out and fetch the father and mother of the girl to the marriage feast. "But where are my 2 sisters?" inquired the maiden. "I have locked them in the cellar. Tomorrow they shall be led into the forest and live as servants to the charcoal burner till they have grown kinder, and do not leave poor animals to suffer in hunger."